phone. This quick and dirty pinch pod is great for storing paper clips at the office, and I even tried making a screw-on lid for mason jars, which is easy to use and surprisingly watertight as well. Proto Putty is fairly stretchy in general, but the thicker you make it, the more durable it's going to be. It works great for impression casting, like making half molds of little glass bottles, but if you're tempted to use it for making custom candy molds, you might want to reconsider. Construction silicone can be harmful if swallowed and can cause serious side effects if it gets inside your body. So rather than using it to make candy molds, it's probably better just to make toys, crayons, or little rubber erasers instead. Well, now you know how to use a few simple and very common materials to make huge batches of Proto Putty on a budget, so you can channel your power of creation and make anything you want. By the way, there's a different kind of food-grade silicone you can use for making candies, and I'll put a link in the description to where you can find it. Well, that's it for now. If you like this project, perhaps you like some of my others. All you need for this project is a box of food coloring, a tub of cornstarch, and a tube of 100% silicone. It's extremely important you get silicone number 1, and while you're here, double check your tube is marked 100% silicone just to be sure. Now, to minimize the mess we're about to make, it's going to be helpful to have 2 disposable paper bowls on hand. Grab some of the food coloring and squirt a generous amount into one of the bowls, remembering that the more you use, the richer your Proto Putty color will become. The silicone caulking goes in next, so carefully squeeze a big blob of it directly into the food coloring until you feel like you've got enough. But keep in mind that silicone number 1 releases acetic acid vapors while curing and smells so strongly of vinegar that it'll your nostrils sting, so you might want to think about mixing this up outside, or at least in a well-ventilated area. Use something like a popsicle stick to slowly fold the silicone and food coloring together, and make sure you don't mix it too quickly or it might splash out and stain your clothes. You'll be able to tell when the 2 components are combined because they blend nicely into a solid and uniform color. Now, it's important to note that as soon as the food coloring is mixed, the clock is ticking, and we've only got about 10 minutes of work time before this all starts hardening up. But the problem is, this stuff's ridiculously sticky and extremely difficult to work with. But if you drop the blob into a big bowl of cornstarch, then generously coat the outside with powder, the silicone becomes a lot easier to deal with because the powder prevents it from sticking to anything. Now, if you don't want to turn your hands different colors or end up with super sticky fingers, now is the time to put on a pair of disposable gloves. Of course, gloves are optional for anyone feeling adventurous, but you may regret not using them, just saying. Flatten the silicone blob down into the cornstarch, then flip it over a few times, kneading it into different shapes and repeating the process about 10 to 15 times. This will help tame the sticky nature of the mess and make it a lot more manageable to work with. Now, if any part of the silicone starts feeling sticky again, just coat it with more cornstarch and repeat the process until it loses all of its tackiness. After around 2 minutes of kneading the cornstarch in, the color of your silicone putty should brighten back up and start feeling a lot like Play-Doh. When it's thoroughly mixed to the point where it doesn't stick to your hands anymore, the Proto Putty is finished and ready for immediate use. You can mold it, squish it, or press it into whatever shape you want. Just remember,
You need great marketing videos to grow your business. With Promo, you can create commercial-level videos in minutes.
I am denting the wall. Hey guys, I'm Nate. Welcome back to the workshop where today...
This video was sponsored by Casper.com, the company that made my mattress, the one that my wife and I have been using for the last 2.5 years. I've put a link down in the description so you can get one of these super comfortable mattresses for yourself, and if you check out with the promo code TheKingOfRandom, you'll slash another $50 off the price. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the lab. I got a very thing to notice about it is it's not very clean. There's all kinds of rocks, there's sand, there's little sticks and twigs. This stuff is very, very dirty. And even though you can squish it and turn it into different shapes, it's not super clean. You can see all the organics and those large chunks of rock sticking through. So to actually extract the clay out of this dirty mixture, we're going to need to put it through a very, very simple process. And the only things we're going to need to make that happen are a couple of different containers and a little bit of water. So quick update, guys, you can see that I just added a little bit of water to this mixture and I used my glove just to reach down there and stir it around. What we're actually doing is we're breaking up all the different pieces in the dirt itself. We've got rocks, we've got sand, we've got clay, we've got organic materials, and what happens is as we mix it with water, they separate to their different layers. Now over time, the clay and sand all settles to the bottom, so what we want to do is stir this vigorously. We want to get everything suspended and then give it about 5 seconds. Sweet. Now if we stop pouring right here, you can see most of the heavy stuff is left behind. If we look down the bucket, you can see gravel, rocks, everything that's heavy. You can even see a bit of sand left here on the bottom of the bucket. So we can essentially take this stuff and we can throw it away because we're not going to need these big rocks. What we're after now is all the stuff that's contained in this liquid here. Now the second pass is going to be a little bit different. We're going to need something like a strainer. You could use your shirt, you could use your socks, or in this case I'm just going to use a strainer for convenience. We're going to go ahead and clean out this container, then we're going to pour all this liquid through the strainer back into it, and hopefully that'll remove most of the organic material. It almost looks like concrete gravel. It's very cool. So I've washed and cleaned out this white bucket. We got our little strainer here. As I said, you can use your shirt or any kind of cloth material. We're just trying to strain out those organics. But remember that before we pour this solution through the strainer, it's very important to stir it up and agitate it so all those clay particles resuspend in the water once again. So you can see once we strained everything out, we've got quite a bit of organic material left behind. We've got sticks, leaves, twigs, anything that was floating to the surface. And if you want to be extra cautious, you can go ahead and clean out your strainer and filter it one more time to catch anything you might have missed. Starting to look a little like chocolate milk. What's interesting about this is every time we pour it back and forth, you notice there's some kind of a sandy residue left behind. And that's because the sand is actually heavier than the clay and sinks down to the bottom as we're pouring it. So theoretically now, if we take 2 containers and we simply transfer it back and forth and clean the sand out every time, eventually most of that sand is going to be reduced and we're going to have a very fine clay. So here we are, guys. What we've got now is a bucket full of clay water, essentially, that has a little bit of sand. We have used gravity and density of the materials inside to filter out the rocks. We've used a strainer to filter off most of the organic materials, and so now we just have a solution of clay suspended in water. And the longer we let this sit, the more of that sand and clay will drop down to the bottom. Now we don't want the clay to actually settle down yet. We want to extract that first. So all I'm going to do now is use these 2 containers to cycle them back and forth and extract the layers of sand each time we do. And while they're doing that, it's a good time to drop down to the description and click the link to check out Casper mattresses. My wife and I have been using our Casper mattress for over 2.5 years now, and to date, it is still the most comfortable mattress we've ever used. So here's the deal. While dirt, rocks, and clay are pretty cool to play with, they're not super comfortable to sleep on. And if you do some quick math, you'll realize about 1/3 of your life is spent in bed sleeping. Some people even more than that. So treat your body right and get your sleep in comfort. It's a very worthy investment. Casper is here to help, making beautiful and comfortable. I just at this point getting out some of that really as well. Make sure we get this clay here without any of this stuff here. So first things first, I'm just going to take this tall glass here. We're going to just tip this over very slowly, very carefully to get as much of that water off the top as we can. I'm just going to pour off the top layer of that clay as well, just to extract most of that water. And we'll call that right there pretty good. Most of that's going to be really fine clay, but you can see it's very, very moist, so we need to clean that up with a towel. Now the second method of extracting this water is siphoning it. We can use this to suck the fluid up over here, but before it hits our mouth, we can dump it over here, and gravity will suck everything out, very similar to a vacuum cleaner. Now to get even more of the moisture out of our clay, we want to use something like a towel or a shirt, something that's very tight knit and has a lot of fibers. In this case, I'm going to take this towel and I'm going to double it over on itself. We almost want to make a piece of fabric that the clay will not go through. We want all of it to stay inside if possible. So we've got a little makeshift filter here. We're going to pour these in. Hopefully it's tight enough that it'll hold the clay inside. Then we can tie it up into a little ball. We can hang it up and let the atmosphere suck the moisture out of it for a few hours until we're just left with the clay itself. And you can see this towel wants to suck down, but we don't want it to. And hopefully this is thick enough that it's not actually going to go through the towel itself. We want to be able to pick this up and see very little, if anything, coming through the bottom of the bucket. We want it to all stay inside. So that's looking pretty good so far. Might even want to clamp that down. Obviously in the wild, in nature, you wouldn't have clamps, but you can improvise with something else. We just don't want the towel to actually suck down into the bucket. Here we go with round 2. Starting to get heavy now. Beautiful. There we go. There's all our clay in our towel, and we're just going to fold this up, tie it off, and hang it for a bit. And now, if everything goes well, we want to take all the edges of this towel, fold them all together, and make a nice little ball of liquid. Oop, that just fell in. It's okay, we can save it. There we go. That's looking very good, very good. All right, so we got our slip knot set. Now all we have to do is shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it. Doesn't have to be clean, just has to be functional. There, what do you think? All right. So this is pretty much what we're going for, guys. We got our clay wrapped up inside the towel, and you can see some moisture dripping off, but a lot of that is relatively clean water. It doesn't have the clay in it because the clay is being trapped by the fibers on the inside of the cloth. Now, if we just let this hang out for a couple of hours, most of that moisture is going to come out, and we should be left with a nice ball of clay. Cool. All right, guys, we are back. It's been about an hour now since we took our bag outside and let it hang off of the railing. Now, in the interest of time, I actually did squeeze the bag a little bit to help encourage a little bit of that moisture to come out a little bit quicker. In doing so, I sacrificed a little bit of the clay itself, but I don't think that's going to jeopardize the proof of concept. So here we are with our towel with most of the water squeezed out of it. If we open this up now and take a look inside,
what if you could magically split your phone in half and have one for personal calls and one for business calls? 2 phone lines, 1 phone, magic.
You can see a lot of the clay on the upper edges has started to harden up and is very plastic. The stuff on the inside though is still really liquidy. It's kind of like runny diarrhea. And if we left this out exposed to the air, eventually that moisture would evaporate and the clay would become hard. However, there is a way we can speed things up. There's a way we can cheat, and all we need is a little bit of paper towel. All we're going to do is rip off a few sheets of paper towel, fold it in half, and we're going to stick it down on the table like this. Then we're going to scoop up our clay, put it down in the center of our paper towel, and we're basically just going to flatten it out. The paper towel is going to absorb a lot of the moisture out of the clay, and as soon as it reaches the consistency we're looking for, we can peel off the paper towel and wrap our clay in saran wrap or a plastic bag for later use. Now again, if you don't have a paper towel, all you have to do is just let this sit out in the open air a little bit longer and let it evaporate on its own, but we're just using this technique to speed the process up a bit. Now I'm just going to take a couple more sheets of paper towel, lay them over top, and help flatten it out from the top side to help absorb the moisture a little bit quicker from up here as well. And now, as easy as that, oh wow, I love this part. Peel this back and take a look at this. We have some very nice, beautiful, ready-to-use clay that just peels off and molds in the palm of your hand. That is amazing. This stuff is very moldable. It's very easy to work with. It's very plastic. You could use this to make a little bowl, a little pot, a little dish, pretty much anything you want. And if you have a countertop with a smooth surface, you can go ahead and throw it down on the countertop and just work it around a little bit to help work out any of the bubbles, the cracks, the crevices, and things of that nature. Now, if your clay gets a little bit too dry, you can add a little bit more water in and work it around to make it a little more plastic. On the other hand, if it's too wet, you can just let it stand out in the open air for a couple of hours to let it evaporate and harden up by itself. Now, before we did this experiment today, I went down to the river and I got a lot more of this river mud, and I let it stand in 5-gallon buckets over a period of 3 days, and I turned it into this. Now this piece of clay, I worked back and forth a little bit more. I got more of the sand out, and I let it sit overnight until all the water had come to the top, made it a little bit easier to work with. And you can feel, if you just run your finger along the side of this, it almost feels rubbery. It's got a very plastic texture to it, and if we carve into it with something like a fork or a spoon, you can see how it just peels away. Now you can work this, you can roll it, you can use it to make pottery, dishes, pretty much anything you want. And if you were to fire this in an oven or a kiln at the right temperature, you could turn it into pottery, like a terracotta planter pot, and possibly even ceramic. So here you have it, guys. We have
Everything's broken. I don't think any of it can be fixed.
What are you gonna do about that?
There is nothing left.
Okay, the small one is definitely ready. And about the big one, I'm not so sure because it has very thick walls, so I'm going to bury it in the coals again and leave it in there overnight. The small one is done, and I have to say that there's better quality when it comes to clay, because this clay here is very sandy, which is not good for making pots. But for my first try, I'm very satisfied. I want to thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel if you want to see other videos like this, and take care, guys. Bye.
Hey guys, Joe here. Thanks for clicking that button. What are you doing?
Hey, wanna play some video games? I know I do. I haven't seen the sun in years. So, let's play League of Legends. Sound familiar? It should. It's amazing. And it's free. You can afford that, right? If you had friends, they would already be playing it. So why aren't you? Jump on in and make some friends. Here's how it works. You start by picking a champion, and there are a lot to choose from. Found one with cool abilities, but you...
Fortnite! No, we're not playing Fortnite today. We're playing a version of Fortnite because remember those stuff? What if we grab this and then throw it like this way? That's cool.